Okay, people, let's talk about events. Okay, I'm still on the same page I was at the last lesson with my changed main. Tell you what, remember I was saying that it doesn't change the code; it only changes the code that is loaded into the browser. Just show you that if I reload it, it reloads the original code, not my modified code. Okay, so it doesn't get saved anywhere. It's only saved whatever's in the browser. Just clear that stuff out, that we don't need that. JavaScript and the web pages are what we call event driven. Okay, what that means is think of it this way: when you think of a computer program, you type a line of code. It's basically a set of instructions for the computer, right? So some types of programs, you give a command, you type the command, you tell the computer what you want it to do. You type the next command, you tell it what you want it to do. Tell it what it to do after that. Tell it what you want it to do after that. If something happens, then do this, right? If this value equals this, then the other one equals this, yada, yada, yada. Eventually it gets to the end of the program, and it stops, and the program's over. In event-driven programming, it's a little different, okay? We have that, but there's certain things we set up that it says, all right, once you're done doing all the commands that I told you to do, I want you to stop and listen or pay attention or monitor if any certain other things happen. And I'm going to tell you what those things are. These are called event listeners, at least in JavaScript. I'm not big in a lot of other programming languages. I don't know if they're called different things, but here in JavaScript we call event listeners. Okay, I'm going to show you right away. We're just going to dive right in and just show you what it is. Okay. So remember how we targeted the main section? We're going to do that again. Let's see. Is that still in my... It was my main, what we called it before. That we called it before. Nope, it's gone now because I reloaded it. So even my variables I used, when I reloaded it, that disappeared too. Okay, so remember, we're not changing the code per se. We're just changing what's in the browser. So let's do that again. My main. You remember how to do it? How to target it? Document something, right? That was the main object. Document object, right? Does that ring a bell? Document object model. Document object, right? So it's document dot. How do you ask a question of which thing we're doing? You query, right? We're doing by selector. There's other queries you can do. You can do query selector all. You see that right up here, right? It's giving me a suggestion. There's a bunch of different queries. So, okay, there's other ways. Get element by ID, right? If it had an ID, this one doesn't have an ID, I don't think. By class name, by tag name, there's a bunch of different things. But let's just keep with what we've been doing. I don't want to get off target there. Query selector, main. Right. Let's see what my main is. If it got it, it did. Okay, it's very good. So now we've got access to that div, right? The main div. So what if we want to tell it to keep an eye out on that section? So we set up our listener, right? So here's how we do it. We do my main dot add event listener. Okay. I have a good analogy for event listener. So let's do this, which I will tell you. Let me finish just showing you this. I'll give you my analogy and then we'll review it again. Event listener. So what do you put in here? What's the event we want to listen for? Okay. In this case, we're going to do a click. All right. So you tell it what the event is. Let me give you a little quiz here. What does this look like? What are those? Does parentheses mean anything to you? They should. When we talked about functions, remember? that should tell you that this is a function, or in this case it's a method because it's on an object. We know it's on an object because we have this dot here, right? The my main is an object, this child object of, or in this case, not child object, it's got a method called add event listener, which has an argument. We're giving an argument of click, right? Let's not, all right, so hopefully that was helpful and not confusing. Let's get back on track. We're targeting my main. We're telling it to listen for a click. And then what you do is you tell it, well, great, it's listening for a click, so what? The second argument we give this function or method is, well, what do we want to do with it? Well, we want to run some piece of code. When it hears that click, do something. Do this set of instructions. Remember, what's a set of instructions is called a function, right? So we're going to give it a function. Okay. Oops. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's get back in there. That should do it. Oh, come on now. If this happens to you and you need to open up the space in here, you want to hit a return. Basically, I hit return, so it returned undefined because we didn't tell it to do anything. If you want to actually make a space in here, you can hold down Shift and hit Enter, and then it'll give you room to work in there. Okay. So here's inside the curly braces is where you write the instructions of your function, right? So what do we want to tell it to do? What's like the most simple thing? Well, why don't we change the style? Let's do that. My main dot style dot background. How did we do it? Equals blue, right? So let's see. So now, in theory, if we did this right, and we have this, we're targeting the my main, which is this area, right? We're telling it to add event listener of a click, listen to see if I click. I'm just hovering right now, I'm not clicking yet. And if you hear the click, run this function. So here we go, moment of truth. Look at that, holy cow. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing, right? That's like we're at the spot where we're making stuff happen to the page, right? All this time we're just sitting on static stuff where, okay, it types some HTML and it shows up on the page, which is kind of neat, but whatever, right? Do some CSS and we change the color. Here, you can start to imagine all the wild things that we can do here, right? You can add all kinds of functionality. You can write a whole, if you put this function in here, you can imagine this function doesn't have to be one line. This function could be many lines. You could call another function inside of that function. You could say, if it's already blue, change it to red. There's all kinds of stuff. So this is a big deal. Event listeners, right? Okay. So my analogy for event listeners, it's like I think of it as kids on the playground, right? If you have a daycare center or something like this, and all the kids are out on the playground, right? One of the little kids, you have the teachers are out there and they're watching, but whatever. And one of the little kids goes down the slide, he falls off the side of the slide and he's crying. They think, somebody's crying, okay? But they don't know right away which one it is. The event listener is like having the mom on the playground. Somehow, a mom sitting on the side of the playground, they know exactly, they hear that child, and they know it's theirs. They can ignore all the other kids. They can be having a conversation with somebody else, and there could be crying going on. When it's not their kid, it doesn't matter. They don't hear it. But as soon as they hear their kid, they immediately know it's them. So that's like the event listener. It's like you're telling it. It's like giving the mom, putting a mom on there on the playground, or a dad. It's equal. Let's make it equal here, all right? Anyway, if you don't have kids, it's probably a stupid analogy, but if you do, you probably know what I'm talking about. Anyway, event listeners, powerful stuff. Okay, that's probably enough for right now with my silly analogy. All right, see you in the next video.